Athlete's Lifestyle, Assignment 2. An example of a radio interview would be Frank Lampard. He would have to watch his communication, as this is important for him because he was on the radio with James O'Brien, who had to make sure that he is being sensible with his choices of words and what he says, as he was on it because of his sister hearing about what was said about Frank, so it meant that he wasn't happy, so he had to ensure that he doesn't say anything which would affect the people who are listening. This could be things like young kids, as they wouldn't want to hear their idol swearing and being abusive to the presenter over the radio. Then there's research. This would be when he was asked to be on the radio. He would have been told what he was on the radio to talk about, so he would be able to revise what he was wanting to say to the questions. He would also have time to be able to have his answers ready and revised when it is being aired. He would even be able to have a little script written out with him, which would help him with different pointers to find out what he's going to say. Then there's the type of audience. Frank Lampard was targeting to get a bit of closure with his issue he got in, as what was said about him, he wanted to be clear on the air and get what he had to say out and make sure that the presenter is broadcasting a fair and kind things about him despite what he has done. So it would make him not look like a bad person and make his club not look so bad. Then there's his appearance. As there's no video footage of the radio, it would mean that he wouldn't have to worry about what he's wearing or what he looks like, as no one would be able to see him except for the presenter, but he would need to make sure that he looks presentable so that it wouldn't make him look like a slob, and this would give him the opportunity just to be able to concentrate on his speeches, like the speed of how he should be talking, to be able to get his point across clearly. An example of a formal interview, like on the TV, would be David Beckham, as he had an interview with Jonathan Ross. He would have to watch his communication because David Beckham had an interview on the Jonathan Ross show just before the Olympics in 2012. He shows what people should think that professional athletes should be. He has good posture when he is speaking. He was sitting up straight, which is better body position than him being slouched over. This even shows he is wanting to be there and talking and to want to talk with Jonathan, and shows that it is better for people to keep their posture and posture well than scrunching up their body. He made sure that he was keeping eye contact with Jonathan Ross, which shows that he is involved with the conversation, and it is like he is not being distracted with what's going on around him, like the crowd, his family, or people backstage. If David Beckham was not looking at Jonathan Ross, then that would mean that he wouldn't be such a good role model for the younger generation to look up to, so they would not be starting to look up to them when they're not being spoken to. Then there's his appearance. David Beckham looks very presentable when he comes onto the show, as he's wearing a suit, which shows that he's well presented and knows what to do to ensure that he is looking at his best. This would mean that he would be a good role model for people who look up to him, as they would want to look like him, so they dress smart, which would give off a good impression to clubs and sponsorships. He ensures that he would have shaved so he doesn't look tacky. This would show the people that taking care of themselves does no harm, so it would entice the younger generations to take care of what they look like to be able to get respect. He mainly looked smart and presentable because it's not just him he's representing. He's representing his entire family, club, and even sponsors who sort out these sort of opportunities for them. Then there's research. Before David got on the stage, he would have been given a list of questions. He would have been asked by Jonathan Ross. This would allow him time to be able to think about what he's going to be saying back to the questions. He would be told about what sort of audience he would be talking in front of, so he would have to watch what he says if he's in front of children, so that the parents won't get offended with what he says. He would know that Jonathan Ross's program has a lot of joking in it, so he'd have to prepare himself for having a laugh, so he'd be able to enjoy himself more, but knowing his limits so he doesn't go over it and do anything he will regret. Jonathan Ross had to be doing his own research about David, like about his underwear range, which would help even David Beckham to promote his sales. Then there's the preparation. To be able to prepare himself to be on the show, he would need to make sure that he sits down and talks over some of the answers of which he's wanting to say, which would mean that he would be able to keep the interview and conversation running smoothly instead of having stops and starts all the way through the program. He would need to prepare what he is wearing to ensure that it is suitable for the interview, as millions of people will be watching this interview. Significant others. Formal communication with significant others is where they are communicating appropriately in front of significant others in a formal situation. This is very important because these interviews can have an impact on their career, as they are people's role models and they are representing their club and maybe clubs and sponsors, and maybe even being ambassadors to their sport. Firstly, an important factor for an athlete needs to consider will be their appearance, because they need to set a good example. So, for example, if an athlete came to a meeting or an interview wearing old, torn-up trousers, this would show that people that they don't care about themselves, they don't care about what they look like, which can affect the opportunity of getting new deals with the club or even sponsorships. Furthermore, they have to make sure that the clothing you're wearing hasn't got any offensive images or slogans, even if they are in fashion nowadays. So appropriate clothing would be maybe a suit or smart trousers and shirt. So this would show that they make an effort, and this will impress the presenter who's interviewing them, and to the many people who are watching the interview on TV. Also, an athlete will need to have good personal hygiene and make sure that they would make sure you have a clean and smart shave, so it looks like you're looking after yourself. The second thing that they have to consider will be the communication. For example, they'll need to have an appropriate language, because they might be talking to employers or the manager. So if they have bad language, then they will come across as someone who doesn't care about who they play for, or and that could cause them to be kicked off the team or disciplined, which would cause them to miss out on big sponsorships, which would affect them financially and even affect their family. You'd want to be relaxed and have composure in the interview. Otherwise, you wouldn't. It'd show that you don't have confidence within yourself, and as a professional, you'd need a confidence being in front of millions of people. Also, you need to make sure that you're clear and have a good pitch on your voice, so people will be able to hear you, and having composure and the ability to be able to project and make everyone be able to hear your voice well. Thirdly, there's an athlete needs to consider, make sure they have good body language. So having good postures would mean that they'll be engaged in the interview and be able to, younger generations, to be able to learn to have good posture, but it'd also be able to help his voice being projected further. If they are slouching, then you'll look lazy and won't impress anyone, and people would just think that you don't need composure or anything, so they'll just all start slouching. Eye contact is also important, as this shows that you're not rude and you're actually wanting to be there talking to the other person. Then Another thing is that they have to be prepared. For example, he will need to prepare for lots of different questions so that the interview will run more smoothly and seem like you're confident and you know what you're talking about. An athlete might want to research the interviewer and to make sure that the audiences that they'll be in front of and what sort of people will be listening. And even the interviewer might become more impressed as they know that you'll be prepared for anything that comes towards you. Informal communication with significant others is where you're communicating with a significant other in an informal situation, which is less important, and this won't be able to affect your career as no one will be able to see you, but they will be able to hear you. Firstly could be when a significant other is in an informal situation. Appearance is less important because you're not going to get judged for what you're wearing, as it depends on what's the situation is and where you are being interviewed. As if it's during training, you'll be alright with just a training kit, but if you're outside, after, you'd need to make sure that you're wearing something fairly presentable and smart. Then there's being relaxed. This would affect the way you communicate, as it would make a lot of difference to when you're meeting someone in a formal situation, because what you say isn't going to affect your career unless what you say may offend the other person you're talking to. So the way the athletes speak in informal situations will be less structured, and they won't have to worry about their English as much, but they'd have to make sure they look smart. No, they sound smart, so they don't look so bad. This could be an example of when a footballer speaks to the officials on the pitch, as a lot of players swear at the referees and no action is placed when they are professionals. Thirdly, this would be when their preparation would be less important, because you don't prepare for what you're going to say or do, as it might be spontaneous. They might just see you and want to talk to you, and they'd only want to talk to you about what is on their mind or what is in the news nowadays, or how they're even playing. You're going to be more relaxed in the environment you're in, so you're going to be able to be your normal self, and you will be finding things will run smoothly, and you won't become as nervous as if you're as if you knew you're going to be watched by thousands of people. Finally, there would be research. You wouldn't have to research anything, because you never have to research anything when meeting up with a manager or coach in training or afterwards, as the athlete won't be informed that they'll be talking to the coaches. Maybe they will take the players to the side and have a talk about their performances lately, so they won't actually know about what the manager's actually going to talk to them about, so there's nothing that they will be able to research in that time.